just read the other day that Gannon Buhr and Prodigy have sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a settlement or an agreement, but it seems like on the outside, they've come to some sort of truce. Gannon Buhr is wearing Prodigy. The lawsuit's gone. Prodigy's not suing Gannon for all the defamation or for whatever they slander, whatever the legal words they used. So you, as someone who's in the disc golf world, what are your thoughts? Is this a great thing? Is this a well thing? Or did Gannon lose? Did Prodigy lose? What are your overall thoughts on it as far as the disc golf world?
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't say that I thought either one of them lost in, dropping the lawsuit and Gannon kind of continuing to represent the brand. I think that's written into a contract. They're either going to argue over that and it's going to continue to look bad for Prodigy, because I think that's all that we saw. If you looked on Reddit or Facebook pages, I mean, the disc golf community was kind of tearing them up there for a minute.
Yeah.
There was already some quality issues that were kind of, rumored about, but how old is Gannon? Like 17 or 18? He's
something like that. Yeah.
He's a young kid. He's out there having fun, and he's absolutely on top of the disc golf world. Prodigy is like very well known for being one of the first brands that really paid players, right? They brought a lot of.
They were, back in the day, they weren't the first ones to really pay them. They were the first ones that were like, everything we do, well, not everything, but their whole push was, we're for the players. We're going to give the players part of the company. We're going to try to achieve health insurance for the players, and we're going to pay them a salary that that can help them be on the road and tour. And yes, I do remember the beginnings of manufacturers sponsoring was mostly, we'll give you discs, we'll give you shirts and things like that. We'll give you discs for you to sell. I don't know that Prodigy was the very first that gave them money, but they were the first one that said, this is what we're doing for players. It's interesting you brought that up. I specifically remember being at the memorial when Prodigy was making this big push, and there was a big scene at the end of the memorial, at the ending basket, hole 18 at the fountain. And all of these players, Jeremy Colling, Nicola Castro, I can't remember who, I think it was Katrina Allen, but all of these big name players were just like, Prodigy's number one. And it was just like, this is so fake. This is so fake. It was so, Prodigy's the best. They were slapping, doing high fives and stuff like that. They're like, Prodigy.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. So anyway, not to dog on them or anything like that. It was the moment. It was what was happening. But anyway, so sorry.
Yeah. No, I
digress.
No, but I think that situation that you talk about of just maybe Prodigy trying to help establish, even health insurance, So I've only been really paying attention to disc golf since like 2019. I definitely have seen the photos of a young Nico and Yuli and Germ and all of them, all Team Prodigy. And I know that like Will Schusterick and Kale LaVisca have been involved with Prodigy for a long time, and they're great stewards for the sport. So by no means would I disparage the brand, because number one, I definitely believe that they do have, the best interests of players, or at least they have a good interest at heart, and they're aiming to do something. But at the same time, like, you do need to run a business. Who knows the kind of offers that Gannon's getting either. I don't think it was a good look at all for it to be a lawsuit that went public before maybe some sort of conversation behind the scenes with the team, because I mean, I didn't think it looked cool. And then it just started the rumor mill, and Gannon was wiping Innova discs, and that's what he was throwing. And, that never looks good. And I don't think any of that was on Gannon at all. It always comes back to Prodigy.
Yeah, I think definitely a lot of people were making the memes about Prodigy who's dead and stuff like that. But from my perspective, I believe it was a win for Prodigy, only in the sense that it was a win for manufacturers and contracts. In other words, A contract is a contract. I'm not in Gannon's mind. I'm not in Gannon's world. I say hi to the guy, but that's about it. But he signed a contract. Now, was Prodigy not fulfilling their side of the contract? Yes, there seemed to be the argument. Now, that's just based on articles read and social media posts read. But I didn't read their contract, so I don't exactly know. But it seems like now, if a player's like, well, I don't like the way this is going, I'm going to post on social media and I'm going to cancel culture them. Not that was Gannon's whole thing, but but the manufacturer was like, well, wait a minute, you signed a contract. This is a legal binding term, and we're gonna do what we say we're gonna do, but you're gonna, So I think it was kind of a win, even though it made Prodigy look bad. It's still Prodigy is where they were from the beginning. As far as what was happening with Gannon, and did it make us bruise on Prodigy's name? Yeah, but I feel like
bruise his heel.
I think people are going to kind of get over it, and now we're going to go back to hating Prodigy because their flashing is terrible. So
yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So, it's just it's interesting to see disc golf grow up in that sense where. It's now I've been privy to contract discussions and arguments and manufacturers not treating their players very well behind the scenes, just from my dealings with Dynamic Disc. And I'm not saying Dynamic Disc was the manufacturer. I'm talking when we would talk to players that we were trying to get. Some of the stuff was just like, wow, and it was like too many handshake deals, and we need concrete contracts that says this is what you get, this is what we expect on both sides. So, but
and there's ways to negotiate. When you're signing legal documents and you're making these deals that are only getting bigger, right? I mean, as far as it's going, you do have to honor the deal that you made, and the best way to move forward and make sure that you're not having, finding yourself in a situation where you're not getting what you negotiated is to sign those contracts and follow through with things, legally. And unfortunately, you got to play the politics sometimes. If we want our sport to grow and get bigger, then that's one of the things that comes with it, is being able to navigate the politics and the legalities of making this big stuff happen, I guess.
And as with all things, and I will have to say, even though I kind of poked fun at Prodigy at the very beginning when I was telling that story about the memorial, Prodigy did make manufacturers kind of stand up and go, okay, we need to take this a little more serious when it comes to compensation for our players. So they did set that precedent in the sense that somebody had to do it. It had to happen at some point. Prodigy did it. And now I do remember talks of other manufacturers being like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a thing. We're going to have to pay these players a little better to have them represent us. So speaking of that, so now my thinking is, I think this is Gannon's, like, I know 2023 is the end of contracts for a lot of multi-year deals. I know Eagle, Paige Pierce, I believe Missy Gannon, I can't think of anybody else, but at the end of 2023, they're now free to move on if they want to somebody else. And I think Gannon is in that boat as well. So I wonder if this is like, if Gannon is just going to play out this year and
start throwing a pepper.
I don't know if that'll happen, but I mean, I just wonder what the big shakeups are going to be and how this affects Gannon, whether deciding going to somebody, staying with Prodigy or moving on. Does this up his value or lower his value? Or, so that'll be interesting.
I mean, I think it ups his value. I don't know. I don't get too caught up in really caring which team players go to or which brand they're throwing. I will say, after the fact, I do get excited. I remember when Ricky first went to Dynamic, and I immediately bought the Felon, like the Orbit Felon. But and it happens here with Simon a bunch going to MVP. But there's also, it's kind of fun to watch people jump around.
Yeah.
To think about, I think so. I mean, I think it's just like players getting traded in the NBA or something. It's
true.
Kind of fun. It's kind of fun to watch, and it's definitely different, but it's because we're not playing a team sport per se. There's camaraderie across, a lot of these touring disc golfers, but I just think it's fun, and I do think it opens people up to new brands, and that's a part of growing the sport. The thing with Gannon, though, that is kind of interesting to me is like there's the photos of Gannon when he was like waist tall with Will Schusterick throwing Prodigy back then. So to be a kid so young, that was, kind of, that was his dream, right? And he got to live it. And now he is kind of the one, I don't know, balls in his court a little bit.
Yeah.
He definitely has got some play. He definitely got some playing time.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. So, I couldn't care less which way it goes. I definitely wish Gannon and Prodigy best of luck. I'm here to see the sport grow, I guess.
So what are your thoughts? So I know you say you don't really pay much attention to it, but you do like seeing in other sports how people go from different organizations to other organizations. What are your thoughts on this? This is something I remember talking to a few people about us knowing players the dollar amount when it comes to contracts. Now we know the big guys, the Paul McBeths, the Simon, and all that. But what we know when someone gets drafted. We know when someone goes from one organization to the next. We see the headlines of the big deals and things like that. We know how much they get paid. Do you think would be a thing in disc golf? Do you think that's something that people would? I think people would. It would become more fodder for people to talk about when it comes to disc golf,
Sure. And to be honest, that is I don't know, the least interesting thing about the sport to me. but I do think that it's interesting, and from the perspective of being a player, I think I would want to know what other cats on similar tiered teams are making, right? Because
exactly.
Now I know how I get to negotiate, and it's definitely something that if I was a player, I would want to know about in order to negotiate my dealings, my contracts, make me more valuable. Maybe they recognize all of a sudden, dude, I need to work on my social media presence, or I need to get out on the putting green because I'm not even getting offers like so and so.
Or maybe people be like, I don't know that I want to do disc golf anymore if that's all they're going to make.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a bunch of young kids start putting the discs back and picking up a baseball bat.
I know. So anyway, that's interesting. So